I got this question over the weekend and it got me thinking. Without a doubt, this has to be a top 5 question for any laundromat owner. So how much do laundromats really cost? Now, to answer that question, it might sound a little odd, but how much does a $120,000 a year income cost? Or better yet, how much is a recurring $120,000 a year income worth to you? Now, that amount of annual income, recurring income for that matter, is probably worth more to some than others. Not to say $120,000 isn't worth $120,000, but some may find more value in the opportunity and perhaps may be willing to work harder or maybe even willing to pay more money up front to be able to make that type of cash back in the long run. Now, on that same token, if I ask the question, how much does a house cost? Everybody probably has a different number in their head right now. Maybe you'd say $300,000, maybe $500,000. Or let's say you live in a city like LA, San Francisco, or New York. You'd probably say something closer to a million, $1.5 million. And the fact of the matter is, these are all right answers. Similar to home values, prices could vary depending on a handful of factors such as number one, the condition of the property, number two, the value of the property assets, and even number three, the neighborhood. We all know the reputation of neighborhoods matter, so even if two properties were located in the same town, just being a block or two away could make all the difference. But where laundromats and home prices differ usually isn't in the difference in neighborhoods, but rather the difference in the valuation process itself. When we buy homes, we typically use the residential comparable method, where we compare several quote-unquote comparable homes or like-type properties and price them accordingly based on historical data of nearby sold homes within the past 3 to 6 months. So for example, if a 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house sells for $500,000 in neighborhood A, and the very next day, your next door neighbor wants to sell their 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, still located in neighborhood A, chances are high that that house will get appraised and likely sell for $500,000 just like the first home. Now, for laundromats or commercial or really any business sales for that matter, instead of the residential comparable method, we're able to value the assets based on the income it generates or on an income multiplier method. There are a few different variations of this method, such as capitalization rate or cap rate for short, internal rate of return, or even ROI, which most of you have probably heard before. But to put it simply, all this is just a fancy name to determine how long it would take for us, the investor, to make our money back on the deal. Depending on the business and industry, multiples and standards will differ, meaning some deals may have a longer expected time period to recoup the investment than others. However, when it comes to the laundromat game, I typically like to see my money back within around 2 to 3.5, maybe 4.5 years. Now for some, that may sound like a long time, and for others, it may sound relatively short. But if you ask me, 2 to 4 years to break even on an evergreen business, bringing in multi-six-figure profit margins sounds pretty worth it to me. And you could probably find me not walking, but sprinting at these types of deals. And psst, guess what? When I say it should take max 4 years to make my money back, here's a little secret. It usually never takes that long. Through growth and value add strategies, I'm usually able to make my money back at a quicker clip. Now, you might be wondering, make your money back between 2 to 4 years? That's a huge gap in between. And yes, it is. And that's because not all laundromats are created equal. Some opportunities require a little more TLC, tender love and care, than others, and some may make a little more money than others, kind of like people, which is usually the reason why you can see laundromats ranging anywhere in price from $75,000 to $400,000 to even a million, and even some over $4 to $5 million. So what does this all mean? Okay, so let's say a laundromat makes $5,000 a month in income. That's $60,000 a year in take-home profit in your pocket. Now let's assume the shop looks updated, is well maintained, everything is by the book, and all the due diligence comes out clean. We'll also assume all of the machines are between maybe 5 to 8 years old, are in good condition, and that the business is on a decently strong lease agreement. Now, assuming all of this checks out, and keep in mind, this is a very simplified version of my valuation criteria, so additional factors will go into the full valuation process. But on paper, without visiting or seeing the property in person, we can project a fair market value anywhere around $240,000, give or take a little bit. How we arrived at that price was by multiplying the annual income of $60,000 by a multiplier of 4x. So why did I decide to put a multiplier of 4x instead of only maybe a 2x multiplier? And that mainly has to do with the fact that the shop was in good condition, the business has a strong lease agreement, and that the machines weren't too old and were in good condition. Now, in the name of capitalism, of course, we all want the best deal possible. Who doesn't want the lowest price on any business deal? So why wouldn't we value every deal at a 2x multiplier and try to get every deal at the lowest valuation possible? Yes, while that is the goal, and I'm all for it, a successful deal only comes when a buyer and seller are able to come to an agreement on all terms, especially price. So why won't valuing every deal at a 2x multiplier work? Well, for one, and the most obvious, the seller will just reject that price. And two, able buyers will just come in and fill the gaps and get the deal done at a valuation closer to the seller's expectations. These target multipliers of 2x to 5x annual income aren't some arbitrary shot in the dark figures us investors like to use for no reason. Oh no, no. These are proven models determined by the free market and historical data and are simply used as templates or standard of fair valuation. Now, with that being said, just because the seller rejects your first price offer doesn't mean it's game over. Just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you can't score, right? So when exactly would you be able to buy something at a 2x income multiplier? When something looks like absolute dog shit. Now, everything we went over as far as how much do laundromats cost will be on a sliding scale. In business deals, especially cash businesses, there's always going to be at least a little variance. But as long as the numbers are reasonable and makes as much as it claims to, you should be solid. Alright, so to wrap the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy or find value in these types of videos, and let me know what types of questions you guys have or are curious about, and I'll be sure to drop a video on it. Stay tuned for the next.